What's up, everybody? So, in reading the Dark Angels Codex, you come across the fluff, the cool pictures, the army list set up with the army special rules and relics and stratagems and all that. And in reading all of that, I have to say the thing I was most disappointed in with the Codex has nothing specifically to do with Dark Angels, and more so with their design choice for the concept of successor chapters. Now, it's not unique to the Dark Angels. I don't have an early codex yet for 8th edition, but when I eventually get the Space Marine Codex and so forth, I'm sure it'll be a very similar setup there. So I can't say it's specific to the Dark Angels because it's not. And Craft World, Ashra Militarum, the Tau, when they come out, will probably have something similar. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. So it's probably not something specific to Space Marines anymore either. But the way in which successor chapters were handled was really disappointing. Not because I want to go out and collect successor chapters, they're cool, but if I'm going to build an official Force of the Codex, it's going to be the OG First Legion Dark Angels, right? Albeit in their green color scheme and all that, because that's the way they are post heresy. But my point is, that's what I would collect personally, and that's what I have, and that's what I will continue to do. But there are plenty of people who look at the successors and go, that one's really cool, I want to collect that, and they do. And the way in which successors are handled in this codex, and therefore how this concept of a force is handled in 8th edition, I feel is a real disappointing thing and a step backwards. So before going over, summarizing how it's handled, using, of course, the Dark Angels Codex as the example, it's the only one I own, but I want to first talk about how it was. How it was neutral at worst. By that I mean nothing was really said in the Codex specifically about it. But there was an edition or two of the Dark Angels Codex, I know for a fact, and I believe other codices as well said this, but again, using Dark Angels as the example here because the Dark Angel Codex spurred this thinking along, where they would basically go over the successor chapters and say, hey, if you want to collect successor chapters, awesome, go forth, collect, our forces, our models, paint them up in whatever color scheme you want, including a made-up one for yourself if it's your DIY force. And if you want to use a special character, hey, Azrael leads the Dark Angels, but you know what? Build up a model yourself, paint it up in the color scheme, obviously, and change the name. So instead of Azrael, maybe it's Jairus, or maybe it's Gideon, or maybe you'll have Killy McKillface as your leader, right? Whatever it is, change the name, different color scheme. You're using that entry, so it counts as Azrael. But for the purposes, of your forces canon and head lore, head canon and fluff background of it, that's not Azrael, that is Killy McKillface or whomever, right? So that's how it was handled. Now, obviously, they didn't write it the way I said it, but that's how they spelt it out in a codex or two in the past. I think that's the best way to handle these things. And we've seen it a lot with Pedro Cantor and Vulcan Heston when they first came out. So many clones of them were made this way, which is cool, fine, no problem. Now, let's step into the present with the Dark Angels Codex and how successors are handled here. Again, probably handled the same way in the Blood Angel and the Space Marine Codex. I just don't have those yet to confirm, but have to imagine because the entries are similar throughout, for like tactical squads and Primaris and all that, that this would be handled similarly as well. But they go over it talking about the keyword, the Dark Angels keyword in the whole keyword section of the datasheet and all that. There it is, Dark Angels listed, and they tell you, okay, if you're going to collect Successor, they use Angels of Absolution as the example. If you're going to do that, remove the Dark Angels, keyword faction thingy, and put the Angels of Absolution or whatever chapter you're playing in its place. You don't literally do this in your codex or anything, but for the purposes of the datasheet that you would be building an army list with, it would not reference Dark Angels anymore. It would reference Angels of Absolution. Okay, fine, whatever. But then they go on to make a specific note that special characters, and they use Azrael as the example, do not change or cannot change their keyword. Azrael is the supreme grandmaster of the Dark Angels and only leads the Dark Angels, not any successor chapter. Now, strictly speaking, that's true. We're not talking about the fluff of the Unforgiven as a whole and how it's a pseudo legion under the watchful eye of the Dark Angels in the Circle and Azrael, but the very literal chapter command sense, which Azrael really only leads the Dark Angels. Okay, great. However, in stating that you can't change their keyword, the way it's written and the way it's set up very much sounds like you can't take special characters as a successor chapter because they're not for your chapter. Which I feel is kind of cheating out that player base a little bit. I'm assuming Gabriel Seth is still in the Blood Angels Codex. I don't know. But at the very least, if you play Flesh Terrors, you have a character you could take. We don't even have that going on with the Dark Angels Codex, which is, if I was thinking of one way they could improve upon the Codex, it would be to give a successor chapter special character entry. At the very least, if that group would have a character to select. But anyway, that's the way it sounds when they say you can't replace the keywords, so they are always going to be Dark Angels, which means they cannot be the leader of your Angels of Absolution or your Consecrators or whomever. And that just feels weird. It doesn't sit quite right with me personally. Maybe it does for you. I don't know. Share in the comments section below. I feel it's an unnecessary thing to make mention of, especially with that big punch coming in, the slight hook that comes with it of stating that the only relic of a Caliban accessible to successors is the Heavenfall Blade is just insult to injury at that point. It feels odd. Now, granted, there is no need to field a special character in your force. There is no need for that anymore. You can field a generic master, you can field a generic librarian, generic chaplain, generic interrogator chaplain, generic primaris HQ, whatever. There's no need for the presence of a special character to really do anything anymore. So I'm not trying to say the only way to play is with special characters. There's a whole group of people who hate the concept of playing with special characters and against special characters. I never really understood that personally, but I do know of plenty of people who just don't like the concept of special characters in the game, period. Whatever. But by no means is there a need to field one. But the option should always be there. And to basically have it state in the codex that, sorry, successors, you only are limited to generic HQs is a little unfortunate, especially in the past. This is being a complete flip-flop to the past. Even when they used to do articles on their website, they even had an article on the old UW website showcasing some conversions of Unforgiven leadership. And one of them was it counts as Azrael for the Angels of Vengeance, and it was a really cool model. I'll try and find some of those images and put them amongst the images in here for this slideshow setup. But my point is that they even had a showcasing of this and talked about it on their old website, to then go from that and having it be neutral at worst in their codex and now stating, hey, successor chapters cannot do this and only have access to this, I feel is a step backwards, and it is the big disappointment of the codex. Now, I play Dark Angel specifically, so it doesn't affect me, but it doesn't mean I can't see it as a negative thing, right? So, and I got to really thinking about this, particularly on the drive home after Christmas. But I got to thinking about it. It doesn't do anything negative to the game. There is no unfair advantage to be had, right? The stat line for a Dark Angels Tactical Marine Squad compared to an Angels of Vengeance or a Consecrators or a DIY Tactical Marine Squad, it's exactly the same options, stat line, everything. There is no unfair advantage to be had. They're quite literally palette swaps. Now, it doesn't take too much to think about or too much thinking to understand that, but I overthink things at times on long drives. But my point is that there is no unfairness going on. There is nothing to say, hey, we gotta curb these successor chapters from taking stuff. There's nothing there to be harmful to the gameplay. Really, the most harmful thing is that sentence structure, that paragraph or two in the codex, because now it's written in the codex. It's fuel, it's ammunition, it's a platform to stand on for, let's face it, those really annoying players that we know in every game store, those rules lowering type that will bring something up, and if for some reason you're on their list that day, or they're feeling kind of grumpy, they could make a case about that and cause a stink and force a house ruling, especially, or, specifically in tournament and event situations. My stance on this is like this, and this is by no means an official stance. You can't say, well, Keeper of the Fortress said this. Nobody's going to care. Most people probably go, who's that? Anyways, is if I'm playing against you in a game, doesn't matter if it's a tournament, doesn't matter if it's a finals for a huge money pot tournament, which doesn't really exist, but it doesn't matter if it's a GW ran event with GW staff there. It doesn't matter if it's just a standard casual pickup game. Any way, shape, or form I play against somebody, using Dark Angels as the example here, and you bust out an Angels of Vengeance force with a Countess Samael leading it, I will never have a problem with that. It's just a palette swap. No problems. In fact, it's not really a palette swap for that character, because that character is typically black armored. It's just a palette swap for the rest of your army. So, no problems whatsoever. At all. I'm cool with it. And that goes for anything. You want to field a successor chapter to the Ultramarines from the Ultramarine Codex, and you want Marneus Calgar as a count stats for your force? Go for it. I don't care. It's not going to bother me. You're doing your own craft world, and you want to do a count as Eldrad or something, go for it. I don't care. That's my stance, personally. It doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't bother me. In fact, if anything, I want to see your cool converted model. So that's my personal stance. Opinions will vary, of course. I just don't like that it's written out in the codex like that, because now you have ammunition for unnecessary debates to happen mid-game or before a game even starts. Anyways, that's my rambling and ranting on long enough. I talk too much, and this is clearly evident, but of that on topics. But it's just something, it's a slight irking of me, because there's no reason for it to be in the codex, I feel, and it's there and will be in other codices, and it is in other codices to be had already, and it just feels odd. So share your thoughts. Do you agree with the way I view it? Do you disagree? Do you think I went way too long on this topic? Whatever, share in the comments. You're going to anyway, right? Anyways, thanks very much for sticking through it. Have a happy and healthy new year, and I will talk to y'all later in the next coming year. So until next one, take it easy.